Good morning. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on this 9th day of February 2026. And it's time for us to have the conversation of the morning. We are speaking to the KCSE candidates of 1989. They were in Form 1 in 1986? 6,
yes.
7, 8, 9. 86,
yes?
Yes. Yes. So the transition class. So ideally they were in class 8 in 1985. They were in standard 7. I don't know what the name was.
Class 8.
Class 8.
Class 7 was 1984?
Yes.
Okay, and you had thought that you would be finishing then until things changed. We'll talk about that. We have Wesley Opaki, who is an alumnus of Starehe Boys Center and School. He's currently project manager and strategic operations consultant. He'll be telling us what he studied. Good morning.
Morning to you, Sam. Good to have us.
Good to see you. Dr. Agnes Wahome is an alumnus of Moi Forces Academy. He's also the CEO of Kenya Universities and Colleges Placement Service. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
I wish I could say, wish you success. And then you have Dr. Frederick Mukabi, alumnus of Sigalame High School, Director, Kenya School of Government. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam, and good morning, viewers.
Right. So let's start with some statistics, because usually when KCSE results are released, we also hear of the statistics of how the class performs. So let's see this class, because when they start the examination, in the country there were a total of 130,639. That's the lowest ever, I believe. The exam centers at the time were 2,649, and the pass mark, of course, has always been D+. The students that made it was 60.8%. Let's see how they scored. So those days, there are not as many A's as today. There was only one A in the country. There are only 86 A minuses, 363 B+, 1,203 B plain, B minus 2,819, and C plus was 6,506. So that's important because it also tells you how many people qualify to join universities, but we'll hear about that. Then below C plus was majority of the class at 92%. Let's see what's more. For C plus and above, like I told you, 10,978, the percentage is 8.4%. D plus and below was 63%. Today the class is about 48.7% score D plus and below. Now below D plus, that is D plane. Just go back to the slide. That is D plane. Let's just go to the previous slide to see the below D plus, which is grade D, D minus, and E was 51,000, which was 39%. Let's compare between KCSE 1989 and KCSE 2025. You will see that C plus and above, 8.4% in 1989, 27% in 2025. Below C plus was, call it 92% in 1989. In 2025, it is 73%. C plane and C minus was 28.6% in 1989. In 2025, you're talking about 24%, and I'll tell you why that figure is important. D plus and below has fallen from 63% in 1989 to 49%, or 48.7% to be exact, in 2025. Grade E has grown from 0.6% to 4.8% of the class today. So these were your results. Should I begin with you, Wesley, on what you recall at that time, especially transitioning the curriculum? Initially, people would conclude their primary education at standard 7. Then a decision is made that you have to add another year. How was it?
Yes, that was it was very, very disheartening for many of us, because we were already geared, looking forward to finishing up. We already, taunting the other junior ones. Yep. And even the teachers are happy to see us now finish off, strong. So for us, when the change came, I think we're in class 6. Yes. So you can imagine that means you are about to finish the next year, and then now the change comes. That means you have to add another extra year. Yeah. So that was a little bit disheartening for many of us, if little to say. But the good thing is that we were encouraging ourselves, because it would have been sad if we had been taken to different schools. Yeah. But because we're in the same school, we kept on encouraging each other. So I think or the disheartening part was just that the fact that another extra year has been added when you already worked out that you're leaving the school the next year.
Yeah.
So that was very heartbreaking for many of us. In fact, I remember some of our friends in primary school, like you mentioned, Angelique and the others, were saying they almost thought of leaving school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they did.
Just for a moment.
Yeah, for a moment, they're like thinking, no, another extra year. Looked like it's a long time.
Yeah.
But it came to pass.
Okay. Dr. Home, what do you remember of that transition?
Just like my friend says, it was not good news.
Yeah.
Actually had to change schools because where we lived, we just had 1 year to go, So we were also in transition as a family. My father was working in the military then, and we were moving. So when we moved, I had to change schools because it was quite inconveniencing. So the last 2 years, I did them in a different school, which would not have been the case if I didn't have to go to Standard 8.
Right.
Yeah.
How was the transition communicated? Rather, that you're going to have an extra class. How was it communicated then?
Well, I think for us, we just got to know it from the media. It was just news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking that, Dr. Mukabi, because today, at least the country works with a policy.
Yes.
Even if you had to look at how the CBE or CBC came to be, there had been a process, consultations. The Kenya National Union of Teachers was speaking. Then eventually piloting, not very satisfactory piloting, and then it is implemented. How was it in those years?
Wow. Like my cohort mates have intimated, this information was to some of us a great shock because we were anticipating to move on with the class that was ahead of us, and when we realized that we were to go an extra class, it was disheartening, and more so, for my case, when I was switching schools from Western Kenya to Nairobi, I was compelled to repeat a class. That was in early primary, and I kept regretting why I shifted, because then I would not have been caught up by that. But then we were very optimistic. I remember my sister, my sibling, who was right ahead of me. We kept competing, and now I realized that definitely she had moved away from me by virtue of being able to go to Form 1 while I remained in Class 7.
Yeah.
So it is true, it was not an easy moment, and like it has been said, for me, I remember the communication came through our headmaster by then, Mr. Michael De Silva of St. Teresa's Boys Primary in Isili, and we were shocked because we had thought that we were just following our colleagues as normally as it would be. Yeah.
And so what changed? Because I would imagine that a curriculum that was concluding in Standard 7, now there's an extra year in primary. So what changed in the learning areas for that level of primary?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. There was an introduction of some practical subjects, such as art and craft, I remember, where we were compelled to build some houses. Huts, actually in the heart of Nairobi. You can imagine trying to come up with a traditional house.
Real houses or?
Real, we actually, I remember we even went all the way to Isili to look for grass to see how we were to construct that house. We had to seek for mud and all that. Then of course there was music. Music, I can remember crotchets and all that, and even my teacher, it was crazy, and I even remember subjects like home science. I think that was the first time I learned how to sew. Nowadays, I'm able to sew whenever I have got some garment that is loose. I can capably be able to sew. So it was interesting. At the same time, it was very challenging because it was a great deviation from what we knew our counterparts had been doing in school.
So you're actually constructing houses, so it's a miniature of sorts?
No. We did. We were supposed to work in teams. I think the concept was to get us to work in teams.
Yeah.
And every class did a grass-thatched house. So from scratch, and big enough for a family to live. Yeah. We actually roasted maize in our house. Yeah, and then for art and craft, we had to do a mwiko that I used my mwiko in my first home. So it was something that, not just, it had to be something practical.
Yeah.
For home science, we did pajamas. So I went to Form 1 and I didn't have to buy pajamas because I had my pajamas well done.
Oh, wow. So where was this home? Where did you put it up?
In the school compound,
okay.
In the sports field, in one corner.
Where's your house?
I think by now it is shambles or a termite mount or something.
Yes.
But yes, yeah, it's true. We did quite a number of projects for art, like you're mentioning, and doing the homestead. They tried to make it look like, of course, realistic in terms of size, but of course, depending on materials, would make it a bit smaller. Yeah. But yeah, the essence was for being in African culture. We're raised up in town. We see it in pictures, or maybe once in a while when you go up country. So do you know how it's made? So I think, yeah, it was a good thing for us to experience that. And then, like she's mentioning, like Dr. Mukabi has mentioned, home science. I remember also making a tray cloth, which we actually, we even hemmed and also did the embroidery of the flower, the flower on the cloth, and we got marks for it, which was part of actually the assessment. So the music, like you mentioned, we used to do even music instruments, the TT, different ones, the teens, just to make sure people to appreciate the culture aspect of it together with music. Yeah. So they introduced those practical elements, home science, like you mentioned, cooking, baking stuff, making stuff. And so all those things we introduce for us to be able to do them and be assessed before we leave primary. But the truth is that, we couldn't do them to the level that maybe was expected because facilities were building those things for the first time, labs or things to do those things for the first time, like, for example, cooking. You need a good kitchen to be able to accommodate students and be safe. Okay. So it was done hurriedly. But yes, they introduced new subjects. Okay,
and this was assessed at the KCPE?
They were continuous assessments. Okay. So we would be told that, you're getting grades as you go along. So the idea was a continuous assessment. But the message that kept coming on, and I remember the late President Moi repeating that we needed to be self-reliant. The whole story of waiting to be employed, that's what was, they were getting us to break from because there was too much reliance on the white-collar job. So he repeated that with the 844, we had to be self-reliant.
So, at the KCPE level, was there a written exam for these practical subjects?
No, but, well, I don't know whether those grades that we got actually counted to the final grades, but the Form 4 exam, because I took home science, the bigger part of the grades were from the practicals that we did. And it was quite intense because we did the cooking, the cleaning, and stitching. Yeah. So you had to start by, organizing your time. Before the date of the exam, you had to give out your list for the things that you need to be procured. And if you missed out on anything, you just work with what you had. So that had... It contributed to the marks significantly. But the stitching, we had to cut and in 2 hours do half a garment, from the front, the sleeves, and the back.
Wow. Let's take a little bit at Class 8, Dr. Mukabi. And as this was happening, were the teachers prepared to teach these practical classes? Would you know what was going on in terms of their preparedness?
Wow. Yeah, I remember clearly there was quite a struggle on the side of the teachers. Clearly, I remember, like, for music, the school had to source for a music teacher because by then, none of the teachers that were on the staff could be able to teach music. Now, when it came to some of these practical subjects, I remember the teacher who had been assigned to take us through that, for example, the construction of the hut, the bit of the hut. When it came to the construction of the hut, this teacher could not be able to competently know how to go about it. So again, he had to seek the support of other teachers who had grown up in the rural areas to help him on exactly which kind of materials are required and how they should be patched up to be able to come up with a hut. So it was very challenging, and quite a number of times I remember in primary school, I could hear the teachers mentioning that, you know, this is a curriculum that has been brought, and whichever way we do it, we have to ensure that it is done. So as pupils, you have to cooperate. And being an urban school, it was very challenging because getting the materials, even getting the teachers who could do that, because most urban teachers tended to be languages teachers. Now, these technical areas, they had to source to be able to...
and probably non-teachers? People are not exactly teachers?
Yeah, okay, we couldn't tell by then because we were very young, because anybody who came before us, but I can remember some unprofessionalism on the part of one of those teachers, which made us wonder whether this was really a teacher or maybe someone, a technician who had just been requested to come and support us. So we had those kinds of gaps at that particular time.
Did you see books for art and craft, music, home science?
They came late. They came later. Because I remember music, there was a certain blue book, and they were supposed to have come up in good time for us to be able to use them even as a guide. But so we were buying available books, and then the teachers have to fish now the information, because they know the scheme of work, so then they have to fish the information from it. So the books are not necessarily meant for the system, but now, for example, like music, they would get a music book and then now extract. So the books were coming in a bit later. So I think maybe the distribution, how it was done by government, maybe it took a while before it reached different schools. So there was a challenge there, it took a while. And then again, even towards the end, you find they were changing because they realized maybe they were too heavy. They were given too heavy, a lot of stuff for us. Yet our entrance into these subjects was a bit more foundational to lay ground for us now, pick up those subjects in high school. Okay. So they came late. They came late.
All right. Now, we will have this conversation. We just need to take a short break here. When we come back, we'll now dive into, so they have already been introduced to the extra class in primary, but then they have to join high school. Initially, it was taking 4 + 2 years. Now it's just 4 years, preparing them for the next level of education. How was it like at those days? You can also write to us. If you're watching and you're in that class, you can share with us your views, your comments. There are not many of you. There are just 130,000. So we can sample some of your feedback. Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Gitu, the hashtag to use is Citizen Daybreak. You're back in a moment.